Good morning. This is a very special weekend for people of the Christian faith. It is Easter weekend. Today is Good Friday, the day that Jesus died. He was murdered for not what he necessarily did, but for what he said. And we're going to talk about the relevance of Jesus, whether you believe he was the Son of God or a prophet or just a guy who was causing a lot of trouble back in his day, and if he deserved to die for it, and how relevant that is right now in 2018. But first, I want to talk about Easter because, like Christmas, it's kind of a conundrum for someone who um, is not necessarily a religious person. You know, I'm not. I am not a religious person. I believe I'm a spiritual person. But like Christmas, Easter is a Christian holiday that has been turned into a retailer's or especially a candy maker's dream, right? I mean, our children get a long weekend. And again, the dates are all off, just like Jesus was not born on December 25th. Jesus also did not die on March 30th. Okay? I mean, that's just a fact. In fact, Jesus was actually born, historically speaking, in March. So we should be celebrating Christmas in March. And it appears that nobody actually truly knows the actual date that Jesus died and then arose, because that's what Easter is. Let's just make sure we understand the Christians believe that Jesus died on Good Friday and arose, here's the problem, arose 3 days later and ascended to the right hand of his Father, of God. Okay, that's what the Bible says. But again, people play fast and loose with the dates because Easter is on a different day, while Christmas is always on December 25th, the birth of Jesus. And of course, now has nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. It has to do with spending thousands of dollars on presents to spoil your children that they are tired of before Christmas break is even over. Somebody decided, hey, we need a break. We need vacation time in December. It's winter. Let's give the kids 10 days off. So we'll say Jesus' birth was December 25th. Well, wrong. Didn't happen. And believe me, maybe 75% of people don't even go to church on Christmas. They just put up all the lights, put up all the trees, put lots of presents under the trees for spoiled kids, and that's what Christmas is for them. And Easter is no different. And I'm going to tell you about my Easters as a child, okay? First of all, it had nothing to do with Jesus. My Easters as a kid. My mother was the church organist at the Greek Orthodox Church. And luckily for me, actually, the Greek Orthodox Church actually does a beautiful Easter service, but they do it Saturday night, late. It starts at 11 p.m., and it's a beautiful candlelit service, and then at midnight, they do this beautiful song, Christos Anesti, which Christ is risen, and my mother had to play the organ, and she didn't come home until like 1:45 in the morning, because, again, the Greek church services are really long. So, luckily for me, there was no Sunday school on Easter Sunday. They did a service for the children, but because my mom was tired, Easter Sunday to me was a break. I didn't have to go to Sunday school, which I hated. And I hated the kids there because they hated me, treated me very badly. So for me, Easter Sunday was all about, first of all, we colored Easter eggs on Friday. And then the Easter bunny, my mom, would hide the eggs. So Sunday we would get up and we'd look for Easter eggs. And as always, there was just one egg where mom forgot where she hid it. And we would find it eventually, of course, from the smell. But there was always that one egg that I don't remember where I hid it, and the kid didn't find it, so oops. We're going to find it at some point. It'll make itself known. And Easter Sunday was, of course, all about the Easter basket filled with diabetes-causing chocolates and sugary treats and childhood obesity encouraging stuff that we give our kids. Now, back then when I was a kid, childhood obesity and diabetes was not the epidemic it is today, but I was a fat kid. And I certainly didn't need those Cadbury cream eggs and those solid chocolate bunnies. But that's what Easter was. It was about, is it going to be a solid bunny or a hollow bunny? Because the solid kind of hurt your teeth, but the hollow didn't have as much chocolate, and you had to have those Cadbury cream eggs. It was all about chocolate, the Easter basket, and of course, my cousin Mary's fabulous lamb dinner. Roasted leg of lamb with the crispy roasted potatoes cooked in the lamb fat, her spanakopita. It was all about the Easter basket, looking for Easter eggs, and the food, the Easter dinner. That's what it was about as a kid. It was not about Jesus. It wasn't about going to church. I didn't have to go to church. It was a good day. Now, let's fast forward now to the calendars and the way that history has been rewritten to accommodate, I believe, secular people, people who don't go to church, who don't care, who don't believe in Jesus, and that's fine. This, believe me, Paula Luciano is never going to tell anybody they need to believe in anything. But somebody kind of did rewrite history here, and I'm talking strict history, okay? And it all has to do with Passover. Now, I don't agree with much that the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Greek Orthodox Church believes in. I don't believe in hardly anything they believe in. But I will tell you one thing they get right, and that is that this weekend is not Easter. It can't be. Because it goes against history. Now, as a child, I hated it. I hated it when my mom said, all my friends, we were off school, they were celebrating Easter, and my mom said, but it's not Easter. That was weird because it was just something else that made me different. But as an intelligent adult, I now know the Greek church got this right. The Russian Orthodox Church got this right. History tells us that whatever you think of Jesus, he celebrated Passover before he was murdered. And he was murdered. Now, Passover starts at sundown tomorrow. Okay? If Jesus dies today on Good Friday, he can't be there for Passover tomorrow, right? So technically, Easter cannot happen. Jesus can't be dead and be at Passover at the same time. So the Eastern Orthodox religions do it right. They celebrate Easter after Passover because that's historically correct. Why the dates keep changing, why sometimes Easter is the third week in March, the fourth week in April, the second week in April, I have no idea. Because when someone dies, the date of their death doesn't change. Because they want to make sure that you get that long weekend. If I'm going to celebrate my mother's life with a memorial on the day of her death, I'm going to do it on April the 12th. Whether it's a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday, a Thursday, a Wednesday. I'm not going to say, well, we're going to say Mom died on a Friday so I can take off and have a day of mourning and have a long weekend. But that's how people who write these calendars and decide when these holidays are. They decide based on when do people need a long weekend, a nice break. And this year it's this weekend, and it's wrong. It's completely wrong, historically. Because you can't have Jesus dead today and celebrating Passover tomorrow and with the palms being waved at him as he rides in on the donkey. You can't do that. I have another problem. Because the Bible says, and again, I'm not trying to force any Christian beliefs on you. I'm doing this as a history lesson. That Jesus died, was put into his tomb, and on the third day, he arose and ascended into heaven at the right hand of his Father. Now, okay, today is Good Friday. Today is the day Jesus died. And yet, Sunday is Easter, the day he arose. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's only 2 days. Technically, if Jesus died on a Friday, we should be celebrating Easter on Monday. Anybody else with me here? That's 3 days, not 2 days. Technically, Good Friday, 48 hours later, we're celebrating that he arose. Not cool. It's 3 days, so it should be Monday. Everybody should be going to church on Monday or celebrating Easter, having their big dinners on Monday. That's not the way it works. Because again, somebody screwed the calendar. Somebody messed with the calendar. So historically, even people who are devout Christians don't get it right. If you truly want to remember what really happened with Jesus, you need to get the dates right, don't you think? Because you're doing it all wrong. But anyway, I also want to discuss the relevance of the history of Jesus, the man. Because you don't have to believe that he is the Son of God. You don't have to believe in Christianity. Jesus did exist. We have proof of that. So historically, Jesus is relevant today because of why he was tortured and murdered. You don't need to believe he was anything more than a prophet or a guy with a big mouth. But he caused a lot of trouble by what he said. He offered people an alternative to the way they were living every day. He did not want violence, and he didn't want money. Remember, he threw the coins that Judas had collected. Judas was trying to charge people to hear Jesus speak, and Jesus threw the coins in the river. And he said, nobody pays to hear me speak. That's not what this is about. Jesus also did not tell people to completely defy the government. He said, give on to Caesar what is Caesar's. But see, Caesar wanted more than his fair share. And today, in 2018, that's very relevant because we all know, taxpayers, we know that our government wants more than their fair share. They overtax us for lots of things. Cigarettes, alcohol, certain foods, and they overtax us on our income. And they take our income and they do things with it that we don't approve of, like go to war and make violence. And then we have these brave, wonderful children marching to end violence in their schools, to end gun violence. And we've got these big, powerful, Caesar-like organizations like the NRA trying to shut them up. Yesterday's show was about a government senator, Rick Santorum, telling kids, don't even try to end gun violence, just learn CPR because you're going to need it. Very relevant. Jesus embraced prostitutes. Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, and she was one of his best followers, one of his closest followers and friends. He walked among lepers, and he loved the poor and the crippled and the infirmed. He preached peace. He preached the end of violence. He preached kindness toward one another, and they killed him for that. He was betrayed by people he trusted. And just like today, his only crime was that he had a big mouth. He was using what we now call freedom of speech. And he got people's attention. Look at what happens today when someone tries to offer us an alternative, say in an election. Look what happens to an independent running as an independent. or running for the Green Party. They get hidden away. The Democrats and the Republicans are terrified. My God, we can't give people a choice. They can only vote Democrat or Republican. We can't let them vote. So they put the independent away. The independents get no money. They get no airtime on television. They don't get invited to debate the other candidates, the normal candidates, Democrats and Republicans. They're silenced because the Democrats and the Republicans, the way things have always been, they don't want you and me to have an alternative, to actually give some new blood a chance to run this country, possibly doing a lot better than these people who act like kindergartners half the time in Washington are doing for us. Because right now they're not doing a lot. So whatever you believe about Jesus, the one thing you must believe if you read history, and I just finished a good book, it's called Zealot. And it's not about Jesus, the Son of God, it's about Jesus, the man. Why he terrified the powers that be, the Caesars and the government and the emperors and all the people who liked things just the way they were, and Jesus was mucking it all up with his words. Jesus never picked up a weapon. Jesus never told anyone to pick up a weapon and be violent. He was giving people an alternative. He was giving them hope. A lot of people who voted for Donald Trump said he gave them hope, which is why they voted for him. Big mistake, huge, my opinion. So when we talk about Jesus as a man, we can take a lot of lessons from what happened to him. And we can also look toward other countries that, like in Russia, people who challenge Vladimir Putin, bad things befall them, accidents, falling out of windows, being poisoned mysteriously. We see people who go against the norm in some countries being tortured, put in prison, beaten. It's all very relevant, isn't it? And yet, Jesus walked the earth millenniums ago, 4,000 years ago. And what happened to him, his story, history, is still relevant right now. The people that we try to ignore, we try to shut up, we try to throw away as not worthy of being part of our society, Jesus would have embraced them. He would have embraced them. He would have embraced homosexuals. He would have embraced crippled people. He would have embraced disabled people. He would have embraced the people that we try to ignore. He would have embraced independent thinkers and speakers as trying to make a change and give people an alternative and give people hope. So for my viewers who are celebrating Easter this weekend, even though it's not exactly the right date, very happy Easter to all of you. And if you don't believe, you're not a Christian, you're an atheist, or you're a Wicca, or you're whatever you believe or don't believe, at least acknowledge that this is a part of history. Jesus was a real man. And he did get into a lot of trouble for simply doing what I'm doing right now, speaking my mind. Not always agreeing with the powers that be, the people that don't like to be disagreed with. Look what Trump does when someone attacks him. He tweets horrible things about them. He calls people murderers, like Joe Scarborough. He called Joe Scarborough a murderer because he didn't like what Joe Scarborough was saying. Now see, unlike in Jesus' time, we have a little thing today called the Constitution. And we have a First Amendment, which says that we have the right to speak. We have the right to speak out against our government and criticize them when we don't agree with them. And we're not allowed to be crucified, beaten, punished, have a crown of thorns punched into our heads. That's not legal anymore. But it was when Jesus was doing exactly the same thing, exercising his freedom of speech. And he gave his life to do it, as many today still do in certain parts of the world. And even in our own country, if you look at how these activist students who are begging to live to graduate from high school are being persecuted by some, trying to be silenced. So, let's remember on this Easter weekend that we are all human beings first. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a Wicca or an atheist or an agnostic. Doesn't matter. We're humans first. And that is the message. It's a message of love and peace. To treat others the way we want to be treated. That was the message all along. Peace. And believe it or not, in the Muslim religion, Allah also preached peace in the Quran. So let's try this weekend to love one another. And let's try to keep it moving past Sunday. So happy Easter to all my viewers. Happy Easter. Happy Passover to my Jewish viewers. And remember to love one another as you would like to be loved. Treat everyone like you want to be treated. And let's end violence. Violence is not the way to solve problems. Talking is. Happy Easter, everybody. I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Political Paula is out.